Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to introduce you to Seismic in a few minutes, but before that, I also would like to share with you some of my thoughts about the way I think about the role of data and robotics. I've had a career that has really introduced me to the way that robots are introduced into real environments. Before Seismic, as was mentioned, I was the director of robotics at SRI for over 7 years. I got to spend some of Dr. Dugan's DARPA money while I was there and do some other really good work. And before that, I had spent most of my career working on rehabilitation and medical applications of robotics. So when I returned from Cambridge in the UK, where I did a PhD in engineering, I came back and worked in a center affiliated with the DuPont Hospital for Children back in Wilmington, Delaware. My first job in robotics was sitting on the gym floor working with a group of children with a range of disabilities and learning how robotics could be used as an intervention for them as an assistive technology or a therapy technology, and spent most of my career working on those kinds of applications until right before coming to SRI. I was working on a company that was applying robotics for stroke rehabilitation. And one of the things that I noticed as I was doing this kind of work and interacting with the technology of robotics and applying it to these applications that involve people is that over and over I was seeing that the structure that the robotics introduced was creating new kinds of information, and that the robot itself was really a machine that was providing the intervention at the same time that it was collecting information about that intervention. When we were looking at the stroke therapy that we were doing, started to see that the robot could actually document things that the therapist was also doing, but the robot could deliver that therapy and document it at the same time. And so what I was starting to understand is the opportunity around the data, and that the robots themselves were actually creating and consuming quite a bit of information, and that they really were the interface between the physical world and the information world. And the key measure that was what we were identifying, or the value that we were identifying in terms of the business solutions that we were working on, was the ability to measure the quality of the care that we were delivering. So a lot of my insights and how I think about robotics is about how it can deliver quality. So when I came to SRI, my team can attest to this, that I came in and said, "Hi, I'm Rich Mahoney, and it's all about the data." And I really, since then, have thought a lot about how data informs robotics and the opportunity around robotics. So a few other trends started to emerge over the last 10 years or so related to the application of robotics. And one of the key things is that we are in this really early stage of transitioning from industrial kinds of applications to more personal and service applications. And I really think that this is a very significant moment. And if you look at some of these companies that I'm listing here in some of these application areas, part of this is being driven by the fact that robotics technology is dropping dramatically in price. There's a lot more opportunities to commercialize. It's also being driven by labor gaps across all of these industries. So a lot of companies now are looking for robots that can deliver solutions to take care of, they can't find employees to do these jobs, like Abundant Robotics doing apple picking. There's lots of apples being left on trees and commercial orchards because they can't get enough workers to do the work. But the last area, the medical and surgical area, lots of those robots and Intuitive Surgical came from the lab that I was managing at SRI, and Verb Surgical is a venture between Google, Verily, and J&J, and we built the new surgical robot platform that under a contract from J&J. But those robots in particular are a very intense interaction between the surgeon and the procedure that they are delivering. And what's interesting is all of that data is being collected, the movements of the surgeon, the movements of the robot, the interactions of the robot with the tissue, the camera information. And to me, there is a huge opportunity to begin to understand the quality of the surgery that's being delivered, but also to begin to learn from the surgeons, learn from the robot how to replicate that quality in those systems. And I don't see enough discussion of how those kinds of platforms can be used to actually guarantee and manage quality. And I think what will happen as more and more robots are interacting with people, we're going to be collecting information that's never existed before about the quality of all of these kinds of activities. So cooking and cleaning and picking apples, we're going to learn from watching how people do that, understand quality, and then be able to have these new robot systems that can deliver that quality. And I think those data sets are actually something that doesn't exist right now, and that will become the currency similar to the data that self-driving cars are using to manage their decision-making while driving. And so this phrase here, robots democratize quality of life, is a message that I'd like to impart, and mainly because I spend a lot of my career asking why robots are going to kill us all and why robots are taking all of our jobs. And I think we often miss the opportunity that robots have to deliver quality. And if you look at just the impact of the initial application of industrial robotics, there is a benefit that we are receiving right now, that the cost of durable goods is actually less in today's dollars than it was 30, 40 years ago because of the introduction of that automation. And I think we need to manage that opportunity a little bit more. So let me talk a little bit about seismic and how some of these ideas play out. So seismic is based on a technology we developed at SRI under a DARPA program called Warrior Web, which is focused on lightweight, wearable applications of robotics that are alternatives to exoskeletons and more focused on fatigue reduction and injury prevention. And so part of what we saw as an opportunity, and the opportunity I saw based on my background, previous work before going to SRI, and some of the needs that I thought we could fill with that technology, is that most people think about wearable robotics in terms of the exoskeleton technologies that are out there. And there's lots of good outcomes, but there are many applications that can benefit from a more clothing-like solution. And so what we saw as we began to create our first product was the insight that we weren't making wearable robotics, we were adding new functionality to clothing. And while maintaining and wanting to maintain that relationship that we all have with clothing in terms of comfort and aesthetic and emotion. And so also understanding that quality of movement is related to quality of life is one of the insights that are driving the mission of the company. And that really comes from looking at the opportunities around the aging society and the issues that people have as they age related to mobility. So one of our seed funders was Horizons Ventures, which is the venture arm of the Li Ka-shing Foundation. And they were really interested in how we could impact the world's aging demographic. And one of the things that we found as we began to create this product and focus on mobility was that one of the driving forces of decreased independence, decreased mobility was lack of core strength. And so our product, as I'll show you, is really focused on delivering core strength in a wearable solution. But what we also saw is that product didn't just address needs of the aging population, it really addressed needs of anybody in the world that was having reduced strength and mobility from the core through fatigue or injury, et cetera. So coming back to this view of seismic as a clothing innovation, we really have come to own this, and I'm standing before you today as the CEO of an apparel company, not a robotics company. And we really have created a very unique team in order to deliver this kind of solution, and something that does pay attention to all of the things that you need to pay attention to in fashion. But relative to, there's also an important part of this relative to the data. And I'm actually going to skip through this, and I spent too much time talking about robots. So this company is the first company to make real clothing with integrated electromechanical muscles.
We can really add value to people.
So this is the product form. It's an undergarment that has electric muscles integrated to provide power assist around the waist, and it's focused on these core capabilities, creating strength for standing posture, sitting posture, stooping, lifting, reaching, holding, standing from sitting, and squatting to stand. And we use electric muscles to provide that power. And the data plays a role in how we control the suit. So the data is, we have sensors, force sensors and position sensors throughout the suit. They're listening to the movement of the wearer. And for instance, when they're looking to get up from a chair, the suit will recognize that motion, turn on, and provide power assist. And then that data becomes part of the knowledge that we're collecting. How much power people are using helps us understand their mobility status. And so we're looking for outcomes like this. When I stood up, it felt like I was 20 or 30. It was an extension of my own muscles. It felt nice. It felt good. So a key part of the work that we're doing is building a platform. And you can see on the one side, we're just finishing the platform. We have quite a bit of work now to begin testing. We have beta testing that will begin in a couple of weeks. And then over time, the amount of data that we'll be able to collect to create many kinds of products focused on the symbiotic feel that the suit has for the wearer for a wide range of applications, and then much deeper understanding of mobility. And so this is typical data that you'll see in a biomechanics lab that we're able to take off the suit. And then my last point is we are also looking at much more difficult kinds of applications. This is a construction worker in Japan where the average age of construction workers there is 48 and growing older. And we think that we need data to really help us control suits and create symbiotic interaction in these much more difficult environments. So sorry I went over a couple of minutes, but thank you very much for the opportunity to present today.